아래 나는 아래 나 그러나 다 동바니 시리 최랑용원의 주바디 하는 다신 제비 채나는 랑용원의 주바지 매바 랑용원의 주비 동바레스 다디 가zam디 동바니체 나데는 지산 최대네 가르시나 랑용원의 주바 매와마도 다 현실의对内 주바 중국어에서 현실의 对内 바略大把这么约法的也是，就算的电解的缺他们这个学本呢，先进了对内用过的也是，当然的学会地过嘛，谢谢。
Good afternoon. This morning we looked at how whichever object one investigates, it appears to consciousness as if it exists from its own side. But when we investigate, we come to recognize that it does not exist in the way that it appears. It is empty of existing in the way that it appears. So therefore, despite appearing to consciousness as being independent, it is actually dependent. In particular, on dependent on labeling by mind.
那今天在当然这个这边的地区给去跟着去年干啥的碰波的，其实苏老师把俺这里啊都是。那人都感觉是让我们的把刚来嘛，都让我们的能够的是，那完那信息都给我们的结巴呢，按他妈的东上去嘛都你都要嘛，东上去嘛都让要嘛的是，这上今天上就让我们的嘛就把的是，他东上的结巴碰不刚才的碰不了，说不那完那都没的结巴去的，他们他就了，他妈的东上去东北的都过了吧，他东北的也用过了吧，这上今天多人吧，真的。다 가시게 동반이 코로나다 덴바주바 인사 랑고는 주바 인사에 가서는 가사라서 봐 탐이 나와는 제바치도 탐말라 동반이디 얘기도 와 세상도 동반이디 랑고는 주바 인사에 선배게 되네게 도와 연구를 해제래 제가 제네 동반이 덴바주바 동화 파가도 동반이 두고로 봐 제바진 타마니에가 동반이 니거로 와. 니거 요반사다 동반이데 라신이 주바 인사에 선배 도걸리고 해제. 다 동이 또한 데라데리기 말어 봐. 이내다 동이 알아서 저거지도 섬다데 어다 제바지 타마다 동반이 니거레스. 라뷰르 다도 동반이 니나 다 동반이데 라신 주바 인사에 선배게 안 도과용 그래 해제.
All impermanent phenomena, whether the person, the physical and mental aggregates, or an external phenomenon, the way it appears is as being independent, but when one investigates, one sees it's empty of existing in the way that it appears. And in this way, one comes to realize emptiness. However, at this point, having come to realize that the phenomenon is empty of existing in the way that it appears, some yogins may think, I found something. Whilst the object does not exist in the way that it appears, it's empty of existing in the way that it appears, I have found something, I've found emptiness. So perhaps emptiness exists by way of its own nature. So this may well, such a doubt, such a suspicion, may well arise for some yogins. So they haven't yet come to correctly realize emptiness, because now an error has come. Yet, or nevertheless, there are advanced meditators. Now returning to the text on page 21, we have two quotations from Engaging in the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So looking at the first, when it is asserted that nothing at all exists, the object of investigation, true existence, is not observed. At that time, non-true existence lacks all support. How could it abide before the mind?
파 제바체 두 세든 나와나 대시 쇼베셰 바나지면 저 강사다 풍벌어서 바가리네 강시 제 강시 강세디레 제산디 나와 나신지 가르스 능구도 제바체 나요도 랑문이 좀 가라마도 랑문도 능구도 와스 나와 나신지 두개 민도 제바체 탐메 타줄라 가르스네 나와 나신 가야면 동사디 또 오래제 강시 강세 가시 매도 시에스네 제사 강시 제바제바 대수 강 제바지 시디게 나와 나신지 가야 매바 동사지 매도서 가야 매바 동사지 이거래 해지래 대단다지리 디스고데 강시 강기니 매도 시에서야디
Look at the first line. When it is asserted that nothing at all exists, the meditator here is investigating an impermanent phenomenon or a compounded phenomenon to see if its way of existing in reality is in accordance with how it appears to consciousness. The way that it appears is as self-existent, as it being established by way of its own essence. But when they investigate, they come to recognize it is not self-existent, it is empty of being established by way of its own essence.
아디네마 따지고보 미미바시데 제가 강 대신 안에 따바체세기 시 안에 저 강사이나 풍보에는데 안에 랑원에 맞추바래 되어서 그래서 대지 제바치치도 저 동사지마도 이거 말 동사마도 많이 바래서 제가 동사가 많이 바인자 먼저 따지고보스 따자시데 강 따바체세기 시 강사이나 풍보인데 따지에도 디다시 시용오보 되게 라신이 맞추바래 되어서 그래서 내 라신 주바이나 누구 믿도 제바제도 통고고를 해서 니고고를 해서 되니 체매 또고고를 해서 체매 또고발래 또고민도 와서 따지고보 미믹바스네 미믹바스네 되니게 제바제도 되니게 라신 나와 나신지 체매 미기민도서 미믹바 또고민도서 디마토바 나와 나신 마토바제 가르도서는 동사지 또온 거로 봐. 그래서 나와 나신지 요거 또고 말해 마토바 인자 따지고보 되게 아니 라신이 맞주바래 라신이 주바이나 대시 주모로 제바치디 치메 또 오래데 치메 도구면도 와서 미미바래서 다시 오고 미미바세 디시올라.
Second line, the object of investigation, true existence, is not observed. The object of investigation, or the basis of investigation, can be the person, the physical mental aggregates, and so forth. And here, this basis that is investigated appears as being independent, existent by way of its own nature or essence. But if it were so, the investigating or analyzing valid cognizer should find it. But with analysis, no inherently existent or naturally existent object is found. And therefore, it is recognized that the object is empty of existing inherently, empty of existing by way of its own nature, because if it did, a valid cognizer should find it. But instead, only the pure empty state is realized. The emptiness of inherent existence is realized. So this then is the meaning of the second line. So where observed means that emptiness is observed. The lack of true existence is observed.
지산 딱지 응고보 라면도 딱지 응고보를 생각도 대시 제베치세기 시 강사다 풍보라서 봐서 디스서 딱지 응고보 지산 디 템바마 라신 마주바레스 그래서 라신 주바이나 대시 주모로 제베치도 니후도와스 또 그거데 타말라디 도구민도와스 마미 비치를 쓰도 김쟁거 바래 지산 강 딱지 제세기 시 응고보 강사다 풍보라서 봐디서 안에 라신 마주바레스 마주비도 김쟁 가르려나 지산 라신 주바네 대시 주바 뭐좀 제바 제디 동사지마도 도우민도 와 라신 주바에는 그 통고고래 체명해 오래스 지산 체명 도우민도 마미 비치르스 지산 김쟁 마미 바세디 그 체명 마도 바디 도우메 바디 김쟁 거제 지산 그 체명 마도 바 인장 그 라신 주바디 매바레스 지산다 라신 주바 예나 체명 도고래스 지산 예메 제바 제디 체명 도고래 지산 예메 제바 제디 그 체명 도우민도 와스 체면 마도 봐서 다지고 뭐 풍발아서 같이 강사되기 시작한 라신이 마주 바리에서 다시 오버 세디 다 유르와 가지 가르다시 다시 오버 세디 가사디 템버주바 인나미나 가사레 미체 다시 시고로 디나지 풍보레 미네 템버도 제사 다시 제세 시디스와 다시 시 가사다 풍보 오버 세디 다시 제세 시 오버 지어로와 디네 다시 제도 디 템버주 제바지도 템버 마주바레 그래서 대시 가서 가르다시 고선 풍보다 가사디 낭도 가르스 낭도 나와나지 누구의 민우스 제바지고로 봐 가르쳐봐 줘서 가사다 풍보레스 디송 오버시고 디수시고 당 오버세 가시 딱 받치세기 시 오버디 낭도 가르스 낭도 랑원이 좀 낭도但나와나시 누구의 민우 제바지도 체메 도우면도 디 나와나시 지 체메 도우면도 디마도 봐 가르서 나와나시 마도지 디게 동배 동상 도우도 와 진짜 나와나시 체메 도우면도 매베서 나와나시데 매바레스다 템퍼처를 말하듯 다시 유유디서 유디 다시 시디서 아주 시라고 하시 유디래.
So continuing with the same line, the object of investigation, true existence, is not observed. So here, this term translated as true existence has a dual meaning. So if you look at translations elsewhere, such as the original translation of this text or in the Bodhisattva's way of life, what's translated here as true existence and below as non-true existence, and in the verse below, is the word in Tibetan is the word for functioning thing, which means an impermanent phenomenon or compounded phenomenon. So in other translations, you'll see the word thing. Here it's carrying a dual meaning of, in this second line, true existence and functioning thing or impermanent phenomenon. So we understand it in both ways. The object of investigation is the functioning thing, the impermanent phenomenon. And when it's investigated, it is not found. It is not observed. It is not found. What is not found? It's that it existing in the way that it appears as being truly existent. So hopefully from that explanation, you can see how the term true existence and functioning thing, or in other translations they just use thing, both carry meaning here. And what is not observed is the true existence of the functioning thing, or the truly existent functioning thing. Rather, what is observed, what is found, is the pure empty state.
Desi ngome dianzha wa siwa da. Di ce ngome dianzha wa si de, jisa du xene deji ngobo yu di re da, ngobo yu da shi se yu ngobo di ge gasa da pungbo da ngobo di so, andu se dianba zhu de jeba chi de, jisa dongxi que xian siwa da, dongba ni jeba chi de, kanzi di so rangxin ma zhuba dongwa dong yu du, dongxi di gara se, xi di gara se ne, ngobo pungbo da gasa la subo ngobo di siwa la. Di ngobo di din chawa re se ne, rangi ngonyo zhuba zao yin meba rangi ngonyo zhuba da cha din chawa re se, ka zao yin ma rangi ngonyo zhuba di dan chawa re se, rangi ngonyo ma zhuba re se. Chesan da, dongxi que xian ngobo, duji ngobo di ge rangi ngonyo ma zhuba yin zang, di dongxi rangi ngonyo ma zhuba, dongba ni di, denpa zhuba re se, diyan denpa zhuba ma re se war da. Karas denpa zhuba ma yin pyo kimsa cha, deji gansa dang pungpo rangshin ki zhubyo, dongba ni di, korang denpa zhuba yin chugru wala na, de denpa zhuba ma re es. Kimsa kare la na, ko dongxi que xian yu ngobo di ge shasang, rang ngonyo zhuba ma zhuba re, kasa rang ngonyo zhuba dan chawa re es, chasa ma chawa re es, dian chawa se de, rang ngonyo ma zhuba re, chasa rang ngonyo zhuba di dan chawa re es.
Perhaps if we look at the second and third line together, the object of investigation, true existence, is not observed. At that time, non-true existence lacks all support. So I'll read it the other way it can be translated. The object of investigation, functioning things, is not observed. At that time, non-functioning thing lacks all support. So whatever the object of investigation is, the basis, whether it's the person, the physical aggregates or the mental aggregates or an external phenomenon, whatever it is, as we see in the second line, it is not found. In other words, it does not exist in the way that it appears. What is realized is the lack of true existence or the emptiness of true existence. That is what is observed. That is what is realized. And then moving into the third line. At that time, non-true existence lacks all support. So here, this then, the meditator also comes to recognize that the emptiness of true existence that has been realized, that too is not truly existent, but is empty of true existence. It's non-truly existent. It's empty of true existence. So the third line refers to that the emptiness that has been realized, that is empty as well.
Kansa temba tupe tongpa di deshingi gala sana kansa diki kansa tang pumpo la so kunzu tiko temba rangwe ne madupa re kansa temba tupa de tongpa kansa temba tupe tongpe tongyi di ta koron temba tupa re pumpo la so pa temba tupe tongpe tongyi di te temba tupa re senpe ke topa sagi re sakan yong re sene kashi ke dine topa sagi re sene ngide ishe ma jezan inza kansa koron temba gansa ge tingi tongba ni de demba majuba res demba juba mare se gore ane phumbo tingi tongyi de demba juba mare demba majuba res ta di demba majube gyumsen gare lamna digi tongshi chechin duji ngobo digi demba majuba res dene ezan kho demba majuba res gore ta jaza da gansa khoron demba majuba za gansa ge tingi tongyi de demba majuba res phumbo demba majuba za phumbo tingi tongyi de demba majuba re la gore danda di se gore Kansa tingi tongyi di demba majuba res, yinbi gyumchen gare lana kansa khoron demba majuba res ora. Kansa demba majuba. Kansa tingi tongyi dan kansa ni khawarwa, deshi dokpa kare sa res na kansa khoron demba majuba re, kansa ke tingi tongyi di demba majuba res, sanpe dokpa sego res ngi di sechi jenba. Dini yinza da, de junju chimba kare sungo res na, kansa khoron kansa ke tingi tongyi di demba majuba re, yinbi gyumchen gare lana di tongji chuchen gansa di tenpa zhuyo ma re se wara. Also re song, di na xin pungpo tenpa zhubi pungpe tingi tongyi di ya tenpa ma zhuba re. Gyumze gare la na di tongji chuchen pungpo di tenpa ma zhuba re. Du si ne, che zang tongji chuchen tenpa ma zhuba re, di tongyi di ya tenpa ma zhuba re se ne. Gyumze di song wara.
What's being addressed here is the dasa mentioned earlier in the class, that someone who's meditating on emptiness with an object of investigation, whether it's the person or the physical aggregate or any other consciousnesses, the mental aggregates, they may well come to recognize that despite it appearing to exist by way of its own nature, it is empty of existing by way of its own nature. Or to use the terminology in the quotation, despite appearing to be truly existent, it is empty of being truly existent. But then the doubt comes. But the emptiness that has been found, that perhaps is truly existent. So that doubt, that suspicion for the yogin is what is being addressed here in this verse. So here Shantideva is saying, the same reasoning that you've applied to the basis of investigation, the person or the body or the consciousnesses, investigating and not finding and seeing that it's empty of existing in the way that it appears, you apply that same reasoning to the emptiness, and you will see that it too is empty of inherent existence, or empty of true existence. So the person is empty of true existence, and that emptiness too lacks true existence. And the third line here, because it's kind of clunky, the third line here has the meaning that emptiness as well lacks true existence, or lacks true existence, or is non-truly existent.
Gansa Tengi, Gansa Ranshin Dupe, Dombe, Gansa Tiki, Doni, the Demba Madubares, Imbi Gumza Garesana, Di Doni Chujung Obodi, Dien Tawa, Demba Tuba, Zawagin, Mare, Demba Tuba, and Tawa, so Dien Tawa, said this. Just Gansa Koran, Demba Madubanza, Gansa Tiki, Doni, and Demba Madubares. Gansa Tiki, Doni, the Demba Dubna, Gansa, and Demba Dugu, when you chick Demba Dubana, Niga Demba Dugu, chick Demba Maduna, Niga Demba Maduba in Gores. Dien Jelsuman, Dien Jawa, Zawagin Jawa Resor, Dien Jawa Resor, Zawagin Jawa Yomaresor, Ranshin Juba, Zawagin Maresor, Dien Jawas, Dien said Dingazuki, Zawagini, Dien Maresajoro, or the Dien Demba Maresajoro, Zawagin Demba Maresajor, just the Dien Jawa, Zawagini, Rangwini, Maduba, Rangwini to the Jawa Resor, Mother D, the Dejin Dinjin Jawa said Majel Marwa, Dinji Jawa, Chichili, Dini Junwa. The Dien Jawa, Zawani Jawa, Zawani Mares.
The reasoning establishing that emptiness too lacks true existence is because, just like the object of investigation, the person or the aggregate, lacks any support, truly existent support, or lacks any true existence, for that same reason, emptiness too lacks any true existence. And that's the meaning of lacks all support. It lacks the support of being established by way of its own essence. So for the same reasoning that is applied to establish that the object of investigation, such as the self, is empty of true existence, that same reasoning is applied to the emptiness itself.
Jesa dine zadane kansa khoron demba matuna kansa ge tengi tonyi de demba matu ingubi ta jumjen de la kansa khoron demba matu bari larwa ti ganis ingu kansa ta kansa de tonyi de khaarwa kansa khoron ngobore kansa de tonyi de takbare anchik demba kansa khoron demba matu jumjen gi kansa de tonyi de demba matu ba ganis tu gore sada ganis yongure sa yongurwa sam ligirwa.
And a further area of confusion or doubt may arise that the person is a functioning thing, an impermanent phenomenon, a compounded phenomenon. The person is a functioning thing, but it is said to be empty. And emptiness is a permanent phenomenon. So here again, confusion may arise.
Di gugurela, kare gugurela de jumja garela na kansa ke kansa demba to be tongpa de kansa ke ranshin cha de ro wa kasa kansa ke ranshin de ganis du la de jing a to kansa de nang yo de rang mun de tu ba nang go na wa na jin khoron kansa khoron mu ni so kho ranshin de ganis du si che ba che de ranshin rang mun de tu be tong sa cha de ro wa che sa rang mun de tu be tong sa de kansa de ranshin ro wa che sa tong sa khoron rang mun de tu de ba na ani kansa ke ranshin rang mun de tu ba cha de ro wa 제자 랑문이 마두발라요 말와 제자 가사 랑문이 마두바이나 가사디게 동이데 랑문이 마두바 인구레시데 가사게 동이데 가사게 랑신디레 대신 안저 제바제 가사게 랑신 제바 가사 랑신 오니게 마두바레 샤시데 동사이마 도고 제자 가사게 랑신 오니 마두바 인자 동이디 덴바두바레네 가사게 랑신데 덴바두바레스 그러와데 제자 디인자 가사 코론 랑신 동바 덴바 마두바 인자 오니 마두바 인자 가사게 띵게 동이디야 라신 마두바레라 오레스 제자다 가사 띵게 동이디 라신 두바레랍나 가사게 라신디 라신 두바 차요 오레 가사게 라신디 라신 두바 차요나 대지 가사게 나와나신 라신 가리 두제 메지제 바치디 라신 두바레 니고 오레 제자 라신 두바 만년 바제 라신 마두바디 니고로와 제자 디네 자 가사디 라신 마두브나 가사게 동이디 라신 마두바 인고베 김센디 디레다.
Just before I translate what Genla said, the meaning of what I'm about to translate is what has just been expressed, but the words are going to sound very similar, but the meaning is the same as what has just been expressed. Okay, now to translate. The person, when investigated, is seen to be empty of inherent existence. And the literal translation of empty of inherent existence, empty of being existing by way of its own nature. The person is investigated and found to be empty of existing by way of its own nature. And that emptiness is the nature of the person. So from that, some confusion may well arise. So I'll repeat it again. So emptiness, the person, when analyzed, is found to be empty of existing by way of their own nature. And that emptiness is the nature of the person. So from this then the confusion may well arise that nature of the person, emptiness, is truly existent or naturally existent itself. And just like with the person, if the person or the person's empty nature were truly existent, it should be found by valid cognizer on analysis. But when the emptiness of the person, which is the nature of the person, is investigated, no inherently existent nature is found.
Kansa koran demba matuba kansa tongba inde tongi de demba tuba rela na shichi gi ten la ranshin demba tuba jina matuba ni le ora di yo ya marwa shichi gi ten kansa ranshin demba tuba re demba matuba re kansa ranshin demba matuba rela na kansa ranshin kansa ge tongba kansa demba tuba tongi de demba tuba rela na ko kansa ge ranshin de ba jida kansa ranshin de la demba tuba da matuba ni ge cha yo ya ma le jisa kansa koran ranshin matuba za kansa tinge tongi de ranshin matuba re essage dinike yumse ru dire.
If the suspicion of this person were to be confirmed, which is that the person is naturally empty, but that emptiness, being the nature of the person, that is naturally existent. In other words, inherently existent. So that's the suspicion. To express it in the clearer language of earlier, if the person were found to be empty of inherent existence, but that emptiness was believed to be truly existent, the consequent fault of that of a phenomenon existing this way is that on one basis, such as the person or the aggregates, on one basis, there would be both something that were empty as well as something that were not empty. In other words, the person would be empty, but the emptiness of the person would not be empty. So on one basis, you'd have both emptiness and non-emptiness. So that clearly is contradictory.
Tombe tonsang tobe lo de sigoro tonsang tobe di lo di yula rashin juba se de yomares jiternes kol karsan rashin juba tombe tonsang dogoro ma to dogoro deni to banza di yula rashin juba se gune yomares lo de na jiternes kanis yongro yomares ore.
The final line, how could it abide before the mind? What this then refers to, how could it abide? So this refers to what now has been realized, the pure empty state or emptiness. And before the mind refers to the investigating consciousness that now has realized emptiness, to which the pure empty state appears. So the mind that is realizing emptiness, how could emptiness exist truly before it? So that is the meaning then of the fourth line.
Zanda denige tongbanyi tobe losan kansa cheba cheka kansa ranshi tube tombe tongsang tobe lodigi ta tongsang chi tobe ma do shen ga yo ma diga la ko yu de la shen tongsang chi ma do me ba re jesa deni za di yu la ane demba tuba se da deni ka yo ma re se chi yu chi de ne se jesa deni za da tongsang to ba za gang che ngwe da ngwe me da lü du na mi ne ba si du jesa 동반이 또 비교 로디 용어라 단 로디 용어야 아니 동상하지마도 가메레스就是동상하지마도 유된 동주 최전 변의 풍보단 가사 지수에 요만 요 로디 유의 요 말에 유유들 동상디어 때 동상 덴버주바 대 유유들 요 말레스 지상 가야 요 말레스 동상지 왜당 왜메 왜세디 강세 왜당 왜메 베스데 강세 왜당 세디 디 가서我东西缺陷这些接不起是密有干啥的碰波了说我不理解我也没把是的干啥让心这边东北你的碰波让心这边东北你的东面我也没把是东你的这是加上你让我们的主对吧的你的落地有了要嘛的记得的是落地的米内巴要嘛的是落地的米内巴这东上就没得看你东个嘛的是
Fourth line of the first verse, how could it abide before the mind? So this is referring to the investigating consciousness that has realized the pure empty state. So this specific term, pure empty state, is what appears whilst emptiness is being realized. So it can be expressed as the investigating consciousness realizing emptiness. So that would be synonymous. So to this investigating consciousness, or we have before the mind, all that appears is the pure empty state, nothing else. And then this continues into the next verse, looking at the first two lines. When true existence and non-true existence do not abide before the mind. So here again we have the terms true existence and non-true existence. Just like above, the term is literally functioning thing and non-functioning thing, or in other translations, thing and non-thing. And it carries the dual meaning, just like before. So now to continue with Genla's explanation then of the first line of the second verse, when true existence and non-true existence do not abide before the mind. So here, all that appears is the pure empty state. That's all that is appearing whilst emptiness is being realized. The basis of investigation does not appear at all, nor the functioning thing, nor does the emptiness of true, nor does true existence itself appear. None of that appears.
강사 라신 주변 동배 동이다 풍부 라신 주변 동배 동이디 있어요다. 제가 동다 동시 최전나 디딩이 동인이 되려고 그래. 뭐신고에 써야 돼. 동시 최전 뒤지 좀 오버티게지. 뭐메스도 아니 디딩이 동반이 되게 해서 뭐메. 동반인데 딱 봐도 뭐메로 와. 제가 뭐메스요. 제가 강사 되게 동이 풍부다 풍부딩이 동이 있어요. 제가 강사 시대 오버 시대 강사 강세 오버 시대 풍부다 강사 되게 해서요. 뭐에매라도 디딩 동반이 되게 해서요. 마 동반이 또 로를 기시어마 대등 안 저거서 강사 세단 강사 등의 동이 신이요로 봐대. 제가다 풍부다 풍부딩의 동이 신이요로 봐. 제가 오버 시대 풍부다 강사 되게라고 그래제. 당외매라도 풍부딩의 동이다 강사 되게 동이 되려고 그래제. 다라데 디니라고 그래. 당외다 세디니라고 그래.
So I wasn't confident in my translation, so I'm going to correct now the last bit of what I said there, referring to the first line of the second verse, when true existence and non-true existence. So here, when true existence, this is referring to the impermanent phenomenon, the functioning thing that appears as being truly existent, so that's the first term, and non-true existence refers to its emptiness. So when true existence and non-true existence. So in other words, when the functioning thing, which appears to be truly existent, and its emptiness of true existence. So that's the meaning of these two terms in the first line.
다들 류드네 미네바 세진 로세드 수레스네 동방이 도블로 이마 대신 동방이 도블로 되라. 제가 류드네 미네 듄나스디 율라서 율 듄나스 당한 저데 듄스랑 듄라서 지겨라. 디 듄세드 로디기 로디 간저 듄라도 간저 듄데로 봐. 간저 통소일. 제가 류드나스디 로디기 파 다디기 갑라 그 듄들 가서 그 다디도 통통도 세디 유디서라. 제가 류드나스디 제가 동방이 도백이 로디기 유데라 가사 덴바주바세 능고 말에 동방이 덴바주바 니가 능고 말에 제 대신이라 뭐당 뭐면 다시도 가사 동시 최전 가사 풍보라서 뭐 보세 디 띵이 동방이 디게 차상 대시 동방이 도 로이디 유라 콜레 덴바주바 능고를 유디를 여르베스는 요 말에 제가 유디를 요 능고 말에 덴바주바 세는 유라 풍보라 소바 뒤지 최디게 덴바주바 요 말에 덴바주바 디게 요 말에 아니 디팅의 동이 디한 덴바주바 그 유라 요 말에 로디 유라 자오기니 매 말에서.
In the second line, do not abide before the mind. The mind, that this then refers to the wisdom that is realizing emptiness. And before, so this means the object that is being realized, or the object of the mind. So before refers to the object of the mind. And that object is neither the truly existent functioning thing, the truly existent permanent phenomenon. So that was the first term when true existence. So true existence here was referring to the functioning thing, the impermanent phenomenon as being truly existent. That does not abide before the mind, nor does its empty nature as being truly existent abide before the mind. So the meaning then of non-true existence, meaning that the emptiness of the object as being truly existent, that too, the truly existent emptiness does not abide before the mind. So neither the truly existent object being investigated abides before the mind, nor truly existent emptiness of that object abides before the mind. So I'll say the last sentence again, because that puts these two lines more clearly. What neither a truly existent functioning thing, impermanent phenomenon, that does not abide before the wisdom realizing emptiness, nor does that object's emptiness as being truly existent emptiness, neither does that appear to the wisdom directly, the wisdom realizing emptiness. So neither a truly existent object nor truly existent emptiness appears to the wisdom realizing emptiness.
다 동이 도별로 될로 니용으로와 동이 오선 도별로지다 동이 된주 주기 도배 동이 도배 제바 체마 동이 도별로 니용으로와 동이 도배 제바 체마지나 동이 오선 도별로 니용으로와 제자디 다데들로 뒤나 미네 바슬로데 가레스나 동이 도별로 파샤고 레스로와 제자 동이 도별로 샤벤다 동이 도별로 될 파예와레 체베네 니차용으로 동이 도배 오선 도배 체마지나 동이 도배 똑바 체마지 니용으로와 제산다 르드네 미네바스데 코니게라 개발천 셰바이나 동용 오순노 또 비교 르디기 율라 강사당 강사 능거 말에 동이 데버트바 능거 말에스 군주비 나와 탐지 누바레스 동용 오순비 동용 오순 또 비교 르디 율라 군주비 나와치 누바레스 군주비 나와요 말에스 니나요 말에스 데버트바 능거 말 가서 동사하지 마도 능거 말에스 제가 동용 오선 또 유들라 뒤지게 최 많아와서 뒤지게 최 덴바주반 요 말했어. 제가 동이 코로나서 동이 덴바주반 거 말. 제가 디낭낭 오선 디기 또 고도 보면 제가 오선 디기 강 또에 동이는 마도 가요 말. 나야 돼 동이 있는 거로 또에 돼 동이들이 해서 라시 마주반 동고 또 거래 나야 돼 라시 마주바지 마도 요 말. 제가 동용 오선 또 별로디 유라 동이 덴바주바 요 말했어. 동이 데버트 요나 로딜레 난고고로와 난고고라지 난고 말레스 또 도고 난고 말. 제가 가 뭐다 뭐메다 시디 동시 취중 오보디야 난고 말에 동이 최정에 땡기 오보 몸에 동이 대한 대버 주받는 거 말이야. 동이 있는 거도 동이 대버 주받는 거 말이야. 제가 군주비 나와다 아니 니나게 차선 니나 누바 인자 가요 말이야. 류든나 미네바시리 유 동이 최정 오보 당 디 띵이 동이 되게 라신이 주받 대버 주받 나와서디 로 동이 무슨 또 류디 원라 자오는 요 말이야. 저 디스 당보디 맞아. 다들 무슨 집을 기식으로 지달로들라 동요도 별로 무슨 참아지다 또바 참아 이용거래지 다다 본 무슨 르드네 미네바세 무슨 참아들 제시게 셔봐 있나 동요 무슨도 르들라 가르난 것서 동이 모두 생각하는 거 말이지 지금 군주배치 뒤지게 채티게 있는 거 말이야 다 동이 있는 거를 동이디 동이 템버 주받는 거 말이야 지금 니나 누바를 군주배치 단지 니나 누바 군 니나 누바레스 니나 누베 무슨 별로 니나 누바에서 동이 템버 주받는 거 말이야 지금 동이 템버 주 만나 봐서 동이 무슨 또 율라 동바니 템버 주받세 요 말이야 지금 군주배치 요 말이야 가는 거 말이야 동반마도 요 말이야.
In the second line, before the mind. So the mind is the consciousness realizing emptiness, and it refers to a valid cognizer. So there are, of course, two types of valid cognizers, direct and inferential valid cognizers. So then let's, of those two, look at a direct valid cognizer. So a direct valid cognizer, to it appears only emptiness. A direct valid cognizer realizing emptiness, to it only emptiness appears. The object that has been investigated, or what we have here, the object of investigation, that does not appear, because no conventional appearances or conventional phenomena appear to the wisdom directly realizing emptiness, the valid cognizer directly realizing emptiness. So the object, such as the person or the form aggregate or consciousness, this is not appearing. Nor does truly existent emptiness appear, because no conventional phenomena appear. Moreover, no dualistic phenomena appear to a wisdom, to a valid cognizer directly realizing emptiness. So there is no appearance of dualistic phenomena, which means there is no appearance of true existence, not the truly existent object, nor truly existent emptiness, because all dualistic appearances have ceased. So therefore, to a direct valid cognizer realizing emptiness, because all dualistic appearances have ceased, which means there is no appearance of true existence or inherent existence at all, and only emptiness is appearing, emptiness cannot be appearing as being truly existent.
그래서 동반영어순 또 베기 고랑을 가나에디 동있는 거래 가나에 나유디 진다유 직바차들 혼이 쳐봐요 말해 직바차도 지상 그 진다유디 동반이 지상다 동반이디 덴버 주바 진바이나 덴버 주바이나 동영어순 또 별로들 난고고로 와 나나 동영어순 별로디 덴버 주베 또 고고로 와다 진다유 차로 거라 지상다 그지에네 동이 덴버 주변 진고를 때 이내디 또고 말해라네 록셰 차로 와 제상 동영어선 또 별로 될래야 동반이 된다는 거래마도 동반이 덴버 주바 는 거 말해서 동반 영어선 또 별로 지어로 와 동반 영어선 또 비기 동반 영어선 또 비글로 이게 콜라나야기 유대다 진다 유니 지바래 제고 개발요 말해 매바자 동반 영어선 또 별로 되기 가르친 거라서 동이 진거로 와 지상 가나야 돼 진거로 와 동이 덴버주바 나나 동이 덴버주바 진고구리에 제래 제사다 동이 덴버주바 진나 동이 또불로디 가차기 록셰 차로 야나 록셰 차기 야나 동이 덴버주바 체메 또 알아고 와 디니마도 줘요 말와 야나 동이 덴버주바도 또 구고래 다 동이도 덴버주바 마도 바이나 동이 무슨 불로디 록셰 차기로 와 제사 디네자 동이 무슨 불로디 록셰 말와 록셰 말자고 체마래 체마 인상 동이 덴버 주바 능고 말해 나나 진고고래 진나 또고고래 지사 그 동이 덴버 주바 또고 말해 지사 디 유나 동이 덴버 주바 세요 말해세 지사 동유 뢰드나 지들 미네바시도 동유 온숨 도비 유제라 온숨 뢰율라 동유 덴버주바세 싸워있네 난고 말에 요 말에스 제가 되네서 분발로서 봐대 뭐 뒤지 최디게 난고 말에스 다 강한 나에도 동이 짱짱해서 동이 짱바레스 다디
Continuing with looking at, in the second line, the mind, referring to the consciousness that is realizing emptiness, and of the two types of valid cognizers, continuing with a direct valid cognizer realizing emptiness, to such a mind, the appearing object and the object of the mode of apprehension are the same. There is no difference. So the appearing object and the object of the mode of apprehension are the same. There is no difference. So what appears and what is apprehended is both emptiness. Emptiness is appearing to the wisdom directly realizing emptiness, and it is what is apprehended. The appearing object and the object of the mode of apprehension, both is emptiness to the wisdom directly realizing emptiness. That being so, if true existence appeared, in other words, because we're in the context of the doubt as to whether emptiness exists truly or not, or inherently or not. So if emptiness was appearing as being truly existent, so it would be the appearing object, it would be apprehended. And that would mean the wisdom directly realizing emptiness would be apprehending true existence, which would make the wisdom directly realizing emptiness a wrong consciousness and not a direct valid cognizer. So this then is the consequence of those who make the mistake of thinking that they have found emptiness, or because they've found emptiness, it must exist by way of its own nature. The consequence would be that the direct valid cognizer, realizing emptiness, would be realizing something truly existent, and therefore be a wrong consciousness. So how can the wisdom directly realizing emptiness be a wrong consciousness? And as that is clearly absurd, truly existent emptiness cannot exist. Truly existent emptiness cannot exist. So whatever object is being examined, the object of investigation, the person, the physical aggregate, the consciousnesses of external phenomena such as avars, when its emptiness is realized, all that appears, the appearing object, and all that is apprehended, the object of the mode of apprehension, to the direct valid cognizer realizing emptiness, is emptiness. No true existence appears at all. Therefore, emptiness cannot be truly existent.
나 르드나 이치다니에서 로데다양 동유도베 똑바로 봐. 제제 니유라 미네바레세 델레 똑바 되지 셰데다 모습을 잘 셰르바. 다 똑바로 잘 셰바나. 제자다 동유 동방에 또베기 로디기 유디 가르 증거를 동방이 동상이 증거를 해서 다디 진다율 봐. 증거를 해서 제자 디 진다유들라 뭐보 뒤지기 취 뭐보 디게 요 말해서. 안에 가르 증거를 해서 동이 지부마도 요 말해서. 제사 동이 덴버 주바된 증거 말해서. 제사디 동이 된지 수기 또베 동이 또베 체마디 율 진다 유들 동이 지부마도 동이 덴버 주바디야 요 말해. 안에 뭐발아서 뒤지기 좀 뭐버티게 요 막아요 말해. 동이 지부래 해서래. 그래서 동이 덴버 똑반자다 된지 귀네 또 이마와 똑반자. 제상고 동이 똑바인자 똑바디기 진다 유데라 가르레선 동이 찍레 동이마도 산다 요 말해서. 제상 뒤지기 최디게 그 똑바디기 진다 요 말해서 진짜 요 말해서. 다 동이 덴버 주바디야 동이 똑바디기 진다 요 말해서. 아고사 동예 덴버 주바 동예 도베 참아지기 진다유 말레스 진다유데 동이 샤고레스 아도 동예 덴버 주바디 동예 도베 참아지기 진다유 또바디기 진다유 말레스 옛날卷가르요레 동예 도비기 또베 또바디기 동예 덴버 주바 진다 록셰 차이로와 동예 도베 또바디 참아로와 참아엔자 고 록셰 마로와 그 유 진다유라 동예 덴버 주바 주여나 동예 덴버 주바 진다유 차되래 제장 그 록셰라고 그러와 제자 록셰 마로와 고 참아로와 제 참아엔자 그 율라 동예 덴버 주바도 요 말에세 제장 르드나 지다니에시도 동만이 또비기 똑바 참아 디기 진다유 유들라 동이 지부마도 ngobola bi ju che ya yo mare tongyi demba duba dike de yo mare ka yo mare eso ta di re le du na chita ne se na yi din na yi shi go ma din zinda ji san ji zinda go shi ro.
So I mentioned a moment ago that we're still in the second line. The mind refers to the wisdom realizing emptiness, and so it's a valid cognizer, of which there are two. And I've now, in the previous two segments, presented the position in relation to the direct valid cognizer. So now let's look at the second type of valid cognizer, the inferential valid cognizer, which is a conceptual consciousness. So this is also a valid cognizer. This inferential valid cognizer is also realizing emptiness, but not directly, but via a meaning generality. So the object of the mode of apprehension for the inferential valid cognizer, that is a conceptual consciousness, realizing emptiness via a meaning generality, its object of the mode of apprehension is also only emptiness, not the object of investigation, not the functioning thing. What is apprehended is emptiness alone. So again, because this is a valid cognizer, the same consequence would follow, that this inferential valid cognizer, which has as its object of the mode of apprehension emptiness alone, if that emptiness were truly existent, then when emptiness was realized, truly existent emptiness would be realized, and that would make this valid cognizer a wrong consciousness too. So the same consequence follows if the direct valid cognizer was realizing truly existent emptiness. The same consequence follows if an inferential valid cognizer, the one that doesn't realize directly but via a meaning generality, the same consequence follows that if emptiness were truly existent, this supposed valid cognizer would actually be a wrong consciousness, because it would be its object of the mode of apprehension would be true existence, and therefore, as true existence doesn't exist, it would be a wrong consciousness.
제가 돈이 무슨도 별로 될라 나야 될 돈이 마도 능고 말레스 돈이 마도 지난 가나에 돈이 있는 거 진짜 또 고진다 유스 나니스나 돈번이들이 제가디 돈이 덴버 주바지 있나 돈이 덴버 주바 난고 거레스 제가디 나 돈이 무슨도 별로 되게 돈이 덴버 주바 또 고거로 양또 고거래 하나 진고 거로 그 제자디 진행지고 또고 말해 제자 돈이 덴버 주바지 진고 말해 돈이 덴버요 말레스 제자 돈이 세 덴버 주바 말해 디 돈이 추진디 덴버 주바 많이 봐 나신 돈이 대한 덴버 주바 말레스 디 나신다 돈이 덴버 주바 있나 돈이 되비기 또 받쳐마디기 진다 유라 요고레스 제자 진다 유나 또 받쳐마디기 또 고고디 또 고면도 와 가서는 그 랑신 주베 동바 동아 또 마도 랑신 주베 진고도 와 제가 니가 게 랑신 주베 동산도 또 고마도 랑신 주베 진고 말 제가 돈이 덴버 주베 말해서 돈달라 돈이 덴버 주베 요 말해서 돈이 덴버 마주바래 송어 대신에 그 당보할 가르송선에 가실이야 동시 최신 수다 강사로 소바 덴버 주베 제바치 덴버 마주바리기도 이나 디팅에 돈이도 별로디 가리서 동방이데 니기도 제가 동방이데 랑신 주베 인사를 했으면 또 관리고래서 쉬마 제가다 동방이 되니기 또 관리 리기요바 인자 제가 동반인데 라신 주바 말에 라신 주바 있나 교인 가르요르스네 나는 동용스는 배 참미기 또 고고레스 진다율 요고고레 지 진다율라 동사지마도 라신 주바데 라기미도 와스 민도 와스 제가 동반인데 라신 주바 말에 세지 언도 송거
What we've looked at thus far in these verses is what Shantideva is refuting here in engaging the Bodhisattva's way of life, is the yogin who has come to realize that the phenomenon is empty of existing in the way that it appears. So they've found emptiness. Here they have the suspicion, this is the nature of the object. It must exist from its own side. The object does not. The object is empty of existing from its own side, but its nature exists from its own side. So that is a mistaken conclusion, which Shantideva is challenging here. And the way he's challenged it is by presenting that the wisdom that realizes emptiness, it necessarily is a valid cognizer, of which there are two, direct and inferential. Both of them have as the object or the mode of apprehension emptiness. If the emptiness of the phenomenon that has been realized by this valid cognizer were truly existent, then truly existent emptiness would be realized or apprehended by the valid cognizer, whether direct or inferential. And that would mean a valid cognizer realizing emptiness is a wrong consciousness. So here, Shantideva is pointing out the consequence of this mistaken conclusion that has been come to by the yogin, to encourage them to investigate further, to encourage them not to accept that they have realized emptiness, but that there is actually a flaw in their understanding.
Dene anduse de kanche dondala di tongbayine tematuba mares tematuba yimba ina ne dene ki kyun yongure sa sungorwa jesa di dire dene zadang anu jugi dusche tongbayine samdajima jigi du sinmasen o tongbayine tematuba ji menro samsimbege samlola ji dene tu samlona ko yongba ina jesa lamsa di junjune songbege da donda sikti ba da donda di ba ten to bares ko gore dene imba na odadi tematu be ine dene do ada jeda dus jede ja di tata chag dum simju shi da mai ba da go to ya chag orwa.
So again, Shantideva is presenting here the fault that would follow if emptiness were inherently existent or naturally existent, and thereby establishing that no inherently existent or truly existent emptiness exists at all. And so for the meditator who is investigating, comes to recognize the phenomenon is empty of inherent existence, should this doubt arise, they can turn to a faultless guide like Shantideva, and in these verses they can be directed to recognize the fault in their analysis and to look further.
Anzu that jik tomba ni do go ma de ina that ma do be na de ni ji ngan du shin de jik pa sung de pa thwe ba che nyen je on din de ji do ko jen shi ge sem le ya ba sha sha da jen be odi jin de de se yung go ra se be ji sem le ya jen ba ru ju yung go ro ba jen ba li ge ro ba je sa di 데니게 마음 반응하는 주기다 두 신제바 곰 접동바 있는 바 지기 두 신 또야게 야야야 타냥이 저도 데니 잼바디게 게 안디 예마게 가 지기 켜바지 잼비 침바디 어디디 디디 인고르다 데네 나와 리드 어디 데네 구고르다 선배 잼바디게 젠투야게 그 장도를 여반다 그 라신 유고 잼바 람사람사 젠투가 리기로와 베나가 디르 바다 시에라 첩디 당보 호랑랑 가서 시에럽도 가라 참차와나 내 강바이 지기 예래 교고를 연을 교를 라고도 수고를 세대 남사하고야 말와 지파 제 딩자가라 마탑녀야 아니 직도 지파 장장 강점질량 아니 지게 장도라 제여도 아니 아주기 딩자가라 차별도 디 강벌라고 파지 유어데 그 시우지 삼당고 소마고 라신기 전비고 파 전전 남사 그 디지 유용하게 차두고와 니나신 아주 장도를 제비디 냐마 장도를 제비기 디리거라 장도를 면에 있는데 간스 유고는 미션다지 이르데 된 노트지 루제네 차상 게임셔야지 저거로 되네 되네 인자 아니 내가 저기 두스네 내가 저기 퇴바체 안두스네 퇴 양내 양도 퇴야다 안디 돈다디게 어디디로 와서 비게 삼다 잼바디 디진이 디레도 디진디도 잼비파도 수지 양내 짐바르 지레야도 안 마오바나 소수기 니 꼼냠네 제여도 갑라 안 다디 제어도 갈라다 셈리야 나와딩아 두스 가르 차우도 좀 세세세세 하고 그러봐 세세 하고도 지 하고도 지사 녀마기 잼바날 파샤샤바디기 직제도 어디 다다레샤선 지레다 어디 녀마디 디라 말에 되는지 레고도 셈비기 지리 노트지는 잼바디 람사 시진다 잼베디기 진진의 고 노트임바데 람사 하고 두지안에 고卷세 두에 차고로 되네 자다 저기 동이 마도바 이내다 저기 되네게 지기 안에도 고야다 안지게 삼다야디 바샤를 샤지 디기 마오바네야 판도 친구 중고로 받아
If there's a specific dance that is done to a particular type of music, people will train well to try and get to perfect that dance. And when they're starting out to learn the various moves that follow each sequence of music, they'll struggle a little bit with the coordination of what each leg should do and where the hands should go. But through perseverance, continuing, they'll get it right. And then later, they just hear the opening bars of the music, and their body will immediately know what to do. But perhaps they have a dance partner who never really bothered to train very much, and try to do their own thing. They're just going to embarrass themselves. And they in particular are going to embarrass themselves because they're making faults that could have been prevented if they trained well. So with that illustration in mind, this is why we hear teachings on obstacles that may well arise for meditators far more advanced than us. Because this really is for people who are close to gaining an unmistaken realization of emptiness. So for us now, we're planting imprints. And when our time comes, through repeated efforts, we're coming closer to realizing emptiness, where true existence itself is appearing clearer to us, and thereby the emptiness of true existence appears ever clearer, we will be able to recall, or to use the normal translation, mindfulness. Through mindfulness, we will recall this teaching. And we'll recall Shantideva's advice. And at that time, we'll be able to avoid the embarrassment of the untrained dancer, and instead of taking a wrong turn in our realization of emptiness, we'll avoid this possible pitfall. And in that way, now having received teaching on this advice from Shantideva, it will prove to be invaluable.
Dadine desen namba shemebe migba meba rabdo shis. Chidan da desen namba shemebe sede chidan donda ala di gyumtere migba meba rabdo shis de de migba meba rangshing tribute tongba ma rangshing tribute tongba tsamma to rangshing tribute sa gyune ma rabdo shis rangshing tribute tongba re sa chi. Ne maybe gyumtere garasane desen namba shemebe sede da 대시 가르라버스는 아주 르 동방이 또 보여 르유 진단의 유대라 라신 유튜브에 동바지마도 군주비 최다 동방이 가요 말했어 제가 직대신에 라서한테 요 말해라로와 디네 연자다 대전 넘버 셴메베스데 제자다 라신 주바사 싸우기는 매발에 가르스네 동방이 또 보기 진다 유대라 동방이 대 아니 나 동시 지에 라신 마주바데 주바데 대시 유리 자기는 매스 랍사서 요 말과 딜레 현다 직다 나의 유지 콜레 요 말했어요다 다 디니 매나야 아니 라신 주바 요추로 와 현다 나초라선 현다 요 말했어요 대신 넘버 셴메베스데 동반이 또 별로 되라 아니 대시 갈라는 거 말하려면 유 ngobola soba dia nang mares 동반이 데마 주바 dia nang mares 제라서와 다 현다 nang 거베스네 현다나 저베스네 딩예 많이 봐 현다나 현다 가야 나요 말 동반이 뭐 현 가야 나요 말스 제가 디진다 유들라 대선 넘바 셴메베스도 대소 넘바레 셴다 데마 주바 나야다 유주 여베스네 요 말스 동반이 찍부마도 요 말. 매서 셴메베 메바레스 제가 메바자 셴메바자 디 유미바들라 미바 메바 rabdushi di zinda yudel ranshin jubi tongsamado ranshin juba se zao yin kaya yo mare saji na di sungin sarida mikba meba rabdushi sida mikba meba sida tongba yin tobe lo di yu la ranshin juba zao de mikba yo ma ranshin juba zao yin yo mare jisa ranshin jubi shiwa sida ranshin jubi tongba re saji tongba re
Looking at the concluding two lines, at that time, since there is nothing else, it is perfectly at peace without an observed object. So here, at the time when emptiness is being realized, there is nothing else. What has already been covered is that all that appears is emptiness. All that is apprehended by this wisdom realizing emptiness is emptiness. So all that appears and all that is apprehended is emptiness. No conventional phenomenon appears, such as the basis that is being investigated. Emptiness does not appear as truly existence, because there's no appearance of true existence. There's no dualistic appearances at all, with dualistic appearances referring to the appearance of true existence. So if there's no dualistic appearances, there can be no appearance of emptiness as truly existent, because there's no appearance of true existence, only emptiness. So that has already been established above. This line then is saying, there is nothing else that appears. So you as the meditator, don't think, oh, there must be something else. The object being investigated doesn't appear. Truly existent emptiness doesn't appear. And there's not a third possibility that may appear. All that appears, all that is apprehended, is emptiness. Nothing other than emptiness appears and is apprehended. The fourth line, it is perfectly at peace without an observed object. This wisdom, this valid cognizer, realizing emptiness, to which all that appears is emptiness, the appearance and ascertainment is completely free of true existence. Nothing but emptiness appears and is realized. Hence, it is perfectly at peace.
제바치네 탐에 통캔 로디 가서 동이 또 불러대스 니기 통고 거레스 니 율라 군주비 최되게 진다 율라 요 말레스 안도 동이 덴버 주바데 진다도 요 말레스 데레 셴베 셴다지 진다 요르베선 디하 요 말레스 진다 가야 매바레 동이 마도 매바레 진다 진짜 매바자 최근의 시내 라신 주베 동서 동바마도 라신 주베서 자고 있는 매바레 사지 안던다 나던다 닝보데 디레도 뒤뒤신 주바나 나다 매 차상기 약간 르드네 지단에 세다 아니 대신 남면 셴메베세 제가 뭐다 뭐메다 르드네 지단에 디 대신 남바 셴메비 미바마바라도 시세 제가 즉 돌드네 슈바네 최담제 라신 주비 마주바 동상 시월에 동바레 인비 김자가라나 라신 주부 주머리 제바제비 동 타마데 가르레고서 동이 두불로 딜리고레스 진 동이 두불로 델라 뭐보다 뭐버서 뭐버 차산 난거 말에 진당 율려 말에 진당 외매 동방이 되게 때 동방이 덴버주바디야 진단을 요 말에스 근데 딩일에 셴비 대선 남바 셴비 딩일에 셴비기 진당 유여서 디야 요 말에스 매바자다 라신 가야 라신 주바세 매바레스
What's been presented in these verses then is that when emptiness is realized by a valid cognizer, whatever the object that is realized to be empty, so it can be any object at all, whether permanent or impermanent, whether the person, the aggregate, an external phenomenon, any object. When it is realized to be empty, no functioning thing or non-thing, no true existence or non-true existence appears. All that appears is emptiness. Or to express it perhaps more clearly, the object doesn't appear to the wisdom realizing emptiness, nor does true existence in any way, the truly existent object, nor truly existent emptiness. None of that appears. All that appears and all that is engaged with the object of the appearing object and the object of the mode of apprehension is emptiness. If that were not the case, then that if there was an appearance of true existence, whether the object of investigation, the basis of investigation, or emptiness itself, if either appeared truly, as truly existent, then there would be dualistic appearance. Then this valid cognizer would be a wrong consciousness. Rather, the realizing a valid cognizer has as its object of the mode of apprehension emptiness, and emptiness alone, nothing else. There is no appearance of the object of the mode of of the object of investigation, no appearance of emptiness as truly existent. So those two we had in the first verse, and now in the line above. Nor is there any other possibility that could appear, only emptiness. And therefore, emptiness is empty of inherent existence. Emptiness is not truly existent.
Lama and Sanji Lamdin Jeshaba, Digi Chin Lapdang, and Sosugi, Di Between Chebalatine, Sum Tobalatine, Nanzugi, Niji de, more Combe, Niji Champotan, Azuguliki, 2 Gores, Chitan Chanshu Simkia, that Dine Gungor, Chesadineza, Azugi, Dine, Den Balatine, Tobalatine, Ki 2 Gores, Dondala Dangazugi. Kaya Matemba Shenchila, Mateba Niji Ki 2 Mares, Chesan Gudan Kin, Tobala Dine Ki 2 Gores, Niji said the Rashin Kia de Mares, Rashin Kia Yomar, Chesan Gudan Tobala Dine Ki Gores, Chesa Dineza, Dusinangazuge, that go ahead and then you bought this war, Jinji, Chanshu Sim Kia, Sanje Kovan Toyada, Shen, Sosorama, the Shen Simja Tamje, Kovi Dunga, the Jai Tuya Dikachasa, and Gugin Toban Toyodu. And try to go Bishop Jishan to go, Rang Koala to go, Shan Koala to go. You get the Matsovana and to him have a edge. Is that it? You can talk about it in the two edge.
What we've been looking at here in this session can tie with what we looked at this morning. So this morning I mentioned that if a phenomenon is empty of inherent existence, it is therefore a dependent arising, and if it's a dependent arising, it is empty of inherent existence. We took an illustration of the mirror, that a reflection in a mirror can only come about independent on the aggregation of causes, such as the mirror, the face, and light. And then there can be a mirror. So it's a dependent arising, and it lacks inherent existence. What's of such great importance is that in your meditations, apply this to all phenomena, this understanding of the union, the harmony of dependence arising and emptiness. Taking, for example, the spiritual attainments that you long for. So I'll mention compassion, but you apply it to whichever spiritual attainment you particularly desire. For compassion, if compassion were inherently existent, it would already exist to a particular level and couldn't be developed further or reduced because it would be independent, couldn't be impacted by anything. And if it were non-existent, it would always be non-existent too. But that's not the case. On all our continuums, no matter who the being is, there is seeds of compassion. And those seeds can be developed, can be moistened through the existence of the Buddha Dharma in the world, so that the Buddha has appeared and illuminated the path. And then secondly, that this unbroken lineage of lamas who have studied and gained experience, realization of the teachings, and that continues to this day. And therefore, through the blessings of the Buddha and our Lama's guidance, and then from our side, making effort in receiving and integrating those teachings, the seeds on our continuum can and will grow. And this is only possible because compassion is not inherently existent, but is rather a dependent arising and therefore empty of inherent existence. Or it's empty of inherent existence because it's a dependent arising. So again, I encourage you, if you do have your heart set on attaining enlightenment, apply this reflection to enlightenment. If you yearn to be freed of the sufferings of samsara, reflect how the sufferings of samsara too, as well as liberation from them, both are dependent arisings, empty of inherent existence. And therefore, each of us, as well as all of us, all beings, self and other, can attain liberation from pain.
Dine zada jin tsokpa la dine chik chup yunggure se de da du shine da yunggure se da sheba zim dine sheba zam mayinba da ngara zu sosu rang ki sosu rang la sam da je da dine ki jin tsokpa la dine ngara ki gyula gare chung sha chung me du sa jing azu simju re cheba ina sosu rang ki sam da we na 진짜 ngara zu ge dang bo ko la jam ni je se da jam ni je denes kom gore ni je dene kom gore jamba dene janju sim dene chi la gore se de dang bo ko zo xingyo ma ro xingyo ma ro an di jine da yin ji nga zu chue ji shu dang bo jam ni je kom gore janju sim kom gore se da jam ni je se de dene chi la gore janju sim se dene chi la gore je de kom na dene kom gore se ji dene gi tue je tue ne so so rang ge sam da dene da ngara zu ge jam ni je gyule ge me na da ngara zu sam na la ka ro 오다 잠바스 닝제세 되는시 장슈심세 되는시 겁나 되는시 공고월세 디신고로 와다 디신 받은 거 저기 하고 고로 와다 세상 디요와데 가래 당보는 아주기로 요 말다 가르치네 간스레 손라나 지기 라마 지기 최시에 디제도 가주니해 데라미 진랍제 다디네 소소라랑기 어디 디디로 와서 파소지 되니 듬버터네 소소기 파니에 한 소소이네 어디니 시에도 어디니 레도 와선베기 삼르기 잼비기 디게 잼파기 진바인자 디 데니게 하고와데 아주글로 로사바 기르와다 로사바 기고로 지자 데니기 라미기 지 진랍다 소소기 배준 제발라 데네 하고와데 로데 사바기 데네 진네 개와와 디나신 아주 동반이 세다 대버도 라신 주바 세데 데니시 레고레 제가 유엔에 데니시 요고레 데니시 요 말다사다 안에 라신에 주베 동바 세데 동이 세 데니시 레고레 세데 두시데다 다보 동바라데 아지기 지단 잘라 동바레 세마 신 동반이 된다 고야세요 말 제가 디네 장은 주기다 최마 야네 야도 슈 데니게 야네 야 암초에 퇴 라메 직 제네 딘 퇴네 소소기 된다 데니시 라고도와 데니시 라고도와 세베 삼마다 디치기 하 잼바데 진요도 제자다 라신 주바세 데니시 레고레 라신 주바 요 말에세 데니시 레고레 제 동반이세 데니시 레고레 세 데니기다 하고디 데니가 하고요 로디 더 연대로 와다 니 하고요 로디 가르치는 레송라나 라미기 안술마 she ngā rā dōnā chī nyē chēmbē tsī dēla tēne ngā rā dī lō dī sāba kia wā rā wā sāba kia ngō rā dēne yā tā ngā rā lō dū simchū chī na dēne ki chī tēne shēn tēne lō yāqbū rīk sāba kia wā māngbū yā rā māngbū yā rā dēne yā tā ngā rā samlō nā rā yā jāmbā sēyā tā tsēwā sēyā dī kī shērab sēyā dī kī nyēmā kī chēbā yā 디니기 토네 곧 나주 믹 토야 매도 토야 요번에 시라기 체로 니마치네 체차도 요번에 체고래 지다 디니에서 나주 규래 심주 소수 규래 심주 제바이나 디 신지라 뛰네 신 지게 뛰네 줍네 나주 규로 야부리 싸바 끼디게 디니기 같이 요르스네 나주 규라마 심주네 망고야다 나주 심주 마제 지단도 소시 요르세 롭죠 시데다 소수 규라 두게 민도 삼다나 디 요르와다 디 용 방법이 거다 가지 제상한주 예마 마싱바 릭 망보지 최인니스 마싱바 망보 릭지 사바 망보 신여로와다 디 신바디 라메기 개위 신인자니 마 암주의 퇴네 퇴비 된데랑 아주 삼다 잼비 진여도 언징아 주기들에 하고 돼 차이 최고로 디네자 예자 디네를 때네 아주를 똑바디 모데 로디게 상위 릭들이 로디다 야야야다 그때는 가제 나지 롭종 가제 망아 제반 가제 섬 망아 되나딘 로디야 곰시 숙처처 뉴베 처처 로고로와 로투고로와 디네 자당 아주 누스네 다 산지고와 톱세다 탈바 톱세 디네시 토고고마다 셰 때네 주고마 지마딘바제 랑문에 주바죠 말에 세다 아주 되지 다 그신서 랑싱 주바 요 말에 셰데 김전 조디다 랑문에 마주바인자 셴지를 뛰네 주고래 셴지를 뛰네 주바인자 셴지를 배주치 뛰바이나 뛰네 주투고이나 아주 탈바 탐지기 보고 바데 뛰네 아주 주투고래 세데 아도스네 당아 되네지를 삼다이래 아주
Yeah, I want to encourage you now to look at your own continuum. Most of you here, probably all of you, have quite some years in the Dharma. And all too often, one doesn't recognize what has been attained in that time. So there was a time when you were brand new. And you thought you had an understanding of what is meant by love and what's compassion. The term bodhicitta would have been alien, but you thought you understood what love and compassion was. Then you trained with your teachers over these years, and you've come to understand what actually is meant by love in the context of the Buddha Dharma, what is meant by compassion. And bodhicitta is no longer an alien term. You know its specific meaning. Not only have you, over these years, learned what these words actually mean, and therefore what is love and what is not love, but you've also learned how to cultivate love, how to generate love within your continuum. And over these years, in dependence on the effort that has been made, those seeds that came accompanied one's continuum into this life have been moistened, have been nurtured, and love and compassion have grown within oneself. And how did this come about? It came about because our continuum, our imprints on our continuum, these are not inherently existent. They are empty of inherent existence and therefore dependent arisings, which means in dependence on the blessings of the Buddha, in other words, that the Buddha has taught and the teachings remain in the continuum of lamas who are able to transmit both the knowledge and how to cultivate experience of it. So through those blessings of the Buddha, as well as through one's connection and reliance on one's teacher, thirdly, on one's effort, those three coming together, the seeds that came into this life have grown. So here I'm encouraging you to look right now at the development that you have experienced over the years. And this has been done in dependence on these causes. I'll repeat them again. The blessings of the Buddha, your connection and reliance on your Lama, and your effort. And these have brought about development. So this is important to recognize, because whatever development one is aware of, one can take as, it is a dependent arising. I can grow and develop as a practitioner. The qualities I long to develop within me, to be a genuinely compassionate person, a genuinely loving person, I can become so. The external conditions exist as I continue to make effort and apply myself to receive teachings, to hear and to reflect and contemplate on them. The seeds on my continuum will grow and develop, and I'll become ever more habituated to being a loving person, a compassionate person, and interacting with life's events and with people in this way. So recognize that in yourself. Then also, this class in particular, maybe this weekend, the topic has been quite challenging. But look at what your understanding, or recall now, your understanding of emptiness was when you were new. The term emptiness carried some meaning from society. A cup is empty, and that's all we knew. But now we've come to understand what a cup being empty actually means. So here we've come to understand so much more. We've come to understand how phenomena appear. So what is the meaning of truly existent? We've come to gain some experience of how something appears to be self-existent, independent. We've also come to understand the steps of the investigation. How to investigate through logical consequences, to investigate through reasoning, to investigate through the technique of dependence arising, and many others. So this you have a knowledge of, and you have through your effort, you have gained some experience of. And you may well have found independence on the experience you've gained on reflecting on emptiness. The way one relates to others and life's challenges is quite different. So I encourage you to recognize the growth that you've made as a practitioner, and to recognize that as being a dependent arising. Because it's this additional step of bringing in the acknowledgement that this is the dependent arising that will lead you to recognize, by accumulating ever more causes, what I have already achieved will grow further. And the more I can strive to accumulate causes, the more I can turn away from whatever is consuming my time and my energy and apply myself ever more to my spiritual development. I will use what remains of this life well. And the causes, again, are the blessings of the Buddha, our relationship with our teachers, and the effort from our own side. And this is what causes the seeds on our continuum to grow. So hearing this now, reflecting on this now, it becomes clear that there's nothing beyond us. Enlightenment, liberation from suffering and pain, this is achievable for us, as well as all the realizations to that point. And I encourage you to reflect on this again and again, to have confidence, a strength of mind, because habit patterns can be difficult to break. But with confidence, one will apply oneself again and again, and those habit patterns will crack and eventually will dissolve. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But if you have some questions, then...
Quick one. Geshe, the yogi who realizes emptiness but in that meditation affirms true existence, is that an example of an affirming negation as opposed to a non-affirming negation?
So when the meditator realizes emptiness, but comes to the conclusion that they found emptiness, therefore emptiness is truly existent, is this an example of an affirming negation?
Yeah.
Okay. notion short in there, they mega, mayinga.
Not sure can be.
The short
Yudi. Got not sure say Yudi, my God, take it. My God, some mega, mega. Yes, some gun loaded it, Demba Dubarwa. Colonel Yudi Garson, Yudi Garson, Colonel Donsage in Angor, or Donsage Tongor. She's not the Demba Dubares and some of the Corgoremado, the Donsage, the Corongi, Toyag Yudi, Donsage, my mega. Yes, some gun loaded Kachirwa. My temper some go look around the manga marwa, Lodigi carried Tungorasene, Lodigi, that Denigi, Donsan di temper to be inside some gorwa, or a temper to be inside some gorwa. She's not Donsan the temper to be inside some amado, Gaia, they could Yudi carries over the Donsan Chaurwa, Donsan Chaurwa, the mega or Yudi. The Tomba you do name, Maria, that Tomba you could Donsan, Chili or the Tomba you de Marwa. The nigger inside and be don't send the to answers because you did that don't send mega
The realization of emptiness there remains a non-affirming negation. There is this thought that then follows that, I found emptiness and therefore it must exist by way of its own nature. But the realization of emptiness itself, whilst it isn't an actual realization of emptiness, because now it's polluted perhaps, or it's flawed, that remains a non-affirming negation. And this thought is just a mistaken thought. So it's not an illustration of an affirming negation.
Yesterday and today also, Geshe mentioned the importance of relying on a qualified teacher to kind of guide us on our path to realizing emptiness. And that's one of the qualities that students should check in a teacher as well. So how do we, as people who haven't realized emptiness, check whether someone has realized emptiness? And someone can have an intellectual understanding of emptiness, which can also help us. We learn from that. But how do you actually know if someone is actually realizing emptiness? Are there any signs to look out for?
So how can the student know whether the teacher, which we need to rely on in order to come to understand and realize emptiness, has themselves a realization of emptiness, which is one of the 10 qualities of a Mahayana teacher. So in particular of the actual experience of or realization of emptiness, how can one know whether a teacher has this or not? So not just a mere intellectual understanding. Yeah. We can't compare the explanation to our experience. Yeah.
In Lamsang, the Hago Kapurwa, as Susu Tomba Nimatona, the Tomba Toto Matu said, your Toba you may say, I think how could to a Kapuri. Says Dan and Zugi, Chiktombani, Go Shikin, Lamati, Susu Lamatilla, the Susugi Meva, the Lamaki Tombani Toyores, Mevarache, Cotis and Yerva, the Chishine, the Niki, Toyobarosta, Chisharoche. 다 나주게 다 간삼질야 안질라미게 동방이 시에네 나주게 두치네 데 냠용알이 수수 제바치도 소수기다 제바치도 소수기 용알을 된실려도 데니 라마야 땡이디 따따레도 레면도에 세데 라마를 쉬베이나 라마 코롱게 동방이 도구요 바이나 디 따따레 디 따따 말해선 세부 타전 시기와 그새 라마디 코롱 동이 또 매와는 어다디 간에 당이 딱 봐서 세번 라마 디젤이 기시티쇼 선파 코로나직 따또한지를 코로나기 지셀라스 땅 땡그와 지난 디 용거와 지난 안쪽에다 라마데 또다 마도세데 내가 남사 나저 하고 뒤에 깔래 하고래 다 진짜 당보 그런 안들이 두신의 라미티스의 슈디갑라 다 라마디기 킹규베 인샤샤로 지진의 관심이 맞으신 가고로와
It's a valid doubt, because the student, not having gained experience of emptiness, cannot compare the Lama's teaching to their own experience. So they don't know. And it's beyond them knowing whether the teacher has gained experience of a realization of emptiness. So what the student should do is generate the belief that my teacher has realized emptiness, and rely on them closely. So this is a belief. It's not based on anything beyond aspiration, same word. So, but then you, relying on the teacher, studying well, reflecting as being guided, you will come to not only understand the topic better, but also gain your own experience of emptiness. And as you are progressing, you will discuss with your teacher your experience in meditation, your understanding of emptiness through both knowledge and experience. And the Lama, in relation or independence, in relation to his own knowledge and experience, will guide you. And when the student's knowledge and experience is starting to exceed that of the teacher, that's the point the teacher says, now go to that Lama, go rely on that teacher, because you are now exceeding my qualities. So this is a teacher that is now suited to your level. And then you'll be sent elsewhere.
ko lama di be jige kera chimbo da jige jibur chine da yende yeda me se de loma di lamsa de ni thone lama matin ba che 당보 디자인이야 최로 수위에 지금 녀에게 바공한 저게 지금 납전년 많아시지 녀다다 고티니 라마라 마tin 바체 두스녀 안 가sam절이야 두 소수기도 소다디 라마디기다 킹이 설서 킹구스 소수기다 다다 김sel에 때네 돼서 하고 두고로와 디토요데 안데 라마때야데 라미고 로마 따시지네 띵오마데 람사 로마디게 라마tiên 초초진 디네기 띵교 말해서다 단지 라마치네 로마치리 람사 오다딩이 로마치 람사 바지는 바 티쇼쇼진의 지교 말해서 곧 친의 디기도의 민도 안에 가르치기 지도 곧 심주를 제 곧 뜻이네 안 마도신 심주시 안 가sam질이야 안 오다 디기도 선배게 댕케버 로케버 중반의 말 로마제 안 고제라 취시제다 디용고 진짜 라미고 로마 따와 로미게 라마 따와세 디 람사 benenganzo bede shaje garshawse kida loa cheba tabo mai ba ju ki ro to de ju ba ne de le sa ju lan lam sa da opse gye yu ma de ma sa she gres on di nan ji gyo ma les se na di ko ne la mi lo ma ta ba da an lo mi la ma ta ba se di ne ge sim ju she she den gu gu le sa ji ko le mi na ma di ne sung go de ne sa ma ju ge de so ran ge sim bo da che go le.
The advice that the Lamrim presents here is that whilst the Lamrim tends to be more explicit in its guidance for the student in what to look for in the Lama, at the same time, the Lama will be looking at the potential student. They should be examining each other. And so often, or usually, a student will be attracted to a teacher in dependence on their reputation, their charisma, and the pleasure they take in the teaching experience. But at that point, due to the arisal of emotion, they make the decision from their side, oh, this is my Lama. This is a mistaken approach. So it's not that is a mistaken decision, but this approach is mistaken. And it's likened to the way a dog eats its food. Pounces on it, and in moments it's gone. That is not the way to seek out a teacher. Equally, the teacher, especially in the kind of relationship where that your question came from, where you're being guided in your meditation, in your deepening realization, the Lama should also take his time to investigate the student, to see if there is real benefit in them forming a relationship or the student with someone else. So both should take the time to get to know each other and not rush into anything.
Lui ti ci se anche in di che ci ci tu ci da drone di gribe se carere se da di gribe se di ne tu gorwa se da lamsa ci mi kira ci mo ci le sha se de lamsa da ci to sho sho de nganzu de ne ke komshi ka da di yo ma le ah de ro de on de.
For example, the way of proceeding, perhaps, in our monasteries, is that if someone is coming to give an initiation, then what the monks would not do is say, "Oh, this is someone with a great reputation. This is a very important initiation. I'm off. I'm off to receive this initiation." Rather, if they're interested, they'd ask around. They'd ask those whose opinion they trust. They certainly would ask their teachers to find out if this is a teacher with whom they should be establishing a relationship, whether this is an initiation they should be receiving. What is not done is, based on someone's reputation or the reputation of the name of the initiation being given, one rushes to receive that. That is not done and is seen as really strange behavior.
Nganzo pei wa da nganzo pei de zhong se ba wa o lama ji le sha sin duang chi du sin ge din cha sang zhuo xie go le ya hou du da ga de chi de ge ma an di zhuo shan jie ma de o de lama de guo da zu ma re sha de pe du jia se de ge ba jie da de ne de jie cha go wa de ne ge cha go wa de ne za de ne zhuo xie ge je da je di da da cha go ma ga se ne ko kaya myo lamsang chi kera chimurji mi labse tamche ishi chi zhoshana dada chego ma dangbo khurang jizan di tues chike sosu ki gyu ro dan kishti yare sosu na tues samdangwa jizan dini yinza da limrim na xia de lami loma jinsu lami chige lo sum nyema diwa lo sum lami ki loma de la dasi cheche loma kei me lemba chi loma dasi che du chene da yinne chue shi gorwa de chi sung di chi labje ra sung 근데 로메인에 라마디 되네게 다시는 디기 근데 아니 가슴질로 소수게야 아니 기디 나게 류다 넘규다 나다 되네를 때네 라미기 연대디 보투와 지 용거래 세상은 주기데 미디 장부 인면세데 미디 배 제마세제 인도 호라시데 당보 통원도네 미디 장부 하고 두 말와 고야 다시 안 좋아요 아데 로고지 인도 도체는 니마 ngazo rildik sendewa magore ngazo muzo oda chora de chige doya da ngazo roboji wa chen chige chige 야야 이지 등이 계신 조신 아잘라디게 언연지 가로 지듯은 가로 전에 배 야고 인도 호르전 가로 전에 가전에 조신 니네 망고 제가 미디 당보는 인도 호르 통해도 야고 유명하서 하고만 단에도 인도 호르 통고로 와 제가 니네기 미디 이제 윤우지가 쉽제 아니 윤우지 념도 돼야 돼 되네 미기 그 제가 제한단에 그 어디 미디도 장부래샤 미 야구도 선배기 규련지 얘기로 와. 때 유니버시티 어디 미디 되네 진남바 되네 그 삼다 다 되네 시어다 디 되네 딱딱한 요 말을 선배기 규련해 줘로 안디 나지리 로메 라메 된다 라메 라메기 로메 된다 유니버시티도 규련지 차줘로 차도 그래. 진짜 되네 인자 되네기 나 심지어 와서 돼 디차고다 that's mangura chas 되는
What I've just described is the situation within the ordained communities. It's not the situation throughout the Tibetan community. For villagers, it's very different. They're not educated in the Dharma. Some Lama turns up giving an initiation. They drop everything in the field and off they go, and they receive the initiation with great faith and excitement. So it's a very, very different approach. And the danger with that is if it turns out that traveling Lama, the visiting Lama, was not all that he presented himself to be, then regret will arise. And not just regret, but criticism. And thereby negativity accumulated. So that approach is not the approach in accordance with the teachings. So I'm taking quite a bit of time to answer this question, because I think it's important that this is known clearly. So the Lamrim says that when a student and a teacher meet, that they should take a period of maybe 3 years of getting to know each other. And how do they get to know each other? In that period, the teacher teaches. The student receives the teachings and receives so in accordance with the guidance in the Lamrim that they should be interested, they should be enthusiastic, they should use their intelligence and so forth. So the student should be endeavoring or making effort with the teachings, with trust in the teacher, whilst investigating the teacher. And what signs are they looking at? His behavior, his speech, the consistency of his behavior and his speech, and so forth. And then over this period of 3 years, they get to know each other. And they're getting to know each other not in the way we think of a friendship, but in terms of teaching and receiving and implementing the teacher-student relationship. That is the way that a relationship should be formed. A teacher-student relationship should be formed. The habit that many people perhaps have in society of meeting someone and quickly forming an opinion based on an emotional response, a feeling, this is deeply mistaken. In both in ordinary life and certainly in this context. Because what we all should be familiar with, who've received many of these teachings, is that objects do not exist in the way they appear. Moreover, our consciousnesses, our conceptual consciousnesses, are mistaken. So therefore, coming to a rapid decision on someone based on, I got a good feeling, I got a bad feeling, this is really the process of a fool, of someone wanting to be taken advantage of. For example, if you go to the train station in India and a very kind, helpful person comes to help you with buying your train ticket, very nice. Don't give them your money, because you will not see them again. No matter what feeling arises in you, use your intelligence. So very much so with developing a relationship with a spiritual teacher.
Okay,
thank you very much.